104.5 The Team, and it's Levack Goz here with you. And tonight, the ALDS gets underway as the Cleveland Indians host the New York Yankees. And you can hear Game 1 right here on your home for New York Yankees baseball, 104.5 The Team. And joining us now, he's a part of the Cleveland Indians radio network, Jim Rosenhaus. Jim, when you see this Yankee team, what can be the biggest issue for the Indians in this series, in the matchup against New York?
Well, Tom, they're just, you know what, they're a team that's playing well. And obviously playing with a lot of confidence. They've had a good year, and that's probably the case for get down to this point, especially in the American League. I think any team would have been tough, but I think the Yankees played well in September. And usually when the Indians, in the last two seasons, I think it's fair to say, when they head into a series, most of the time they know that their bullpen will be an advantage, but I think they're hard-pressed to say that in this situation. You could very easily say the Yankees' bullpen is equal or as good or better than the Indians. I mean, it's probably a wash when you look at it arm for arm, but that's usually a big advantage for the Indians, but not an advantage in this series because the Yankees bring great power arms to the table, too.
With all the success the LA Dodgers had in the National League, Cleveland's had their own share of success in the American League. Are the Indians under the most pressure this postseason compared to any other team in the playoffs?
I don't know. I think every team has their own issues, although I will say it's different than a year ago. They went in flying under the radar last year, I think primarily because they had some serious injuries to deal with heading into the postseason, and they overcame those during the postseason. So, I think to some extent they were probably the underdog in every series, and because of what they did a year ago, and then winning 102 games in the regular season, and they have the 22-game win streak, I don't know that there's more pressure than what they would normally put on themselves. I mean, they went into the season this year with the idea that they needed to get back to the World Series and then finish the job this year. So there's that internal pressure. I don't know that they're impacted by outside pressure, but sure, I mean, they're much more of a favorite this year than they were a year ago, no question.
What's the attitude of Cleveland fans? I know it's been a different almost year and a half of Cleveland sports fans going through the ups and the downs, but is this fan base still as thirsty for a World Series as they were last season?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think if they had won the World Series last year, it might be a lot different. But remember, I mean, they lost in dramatic fashion in a Game 7, and so I mean, it's still been 1948 is the last time that they've won a World Series, which they're on the clock now as the longest drought of any franchise in baseball. So, yes, there's absolutely a feeling of they've got to get back. I mean, last year I think there was some genuine excitement to be in the postseason again. And now that's old hat because they're back in it for a second straight year, and they have heavy aspirations. And now they open up with a really challenging first series here.
It is Levack Goz here with you on 104.5 The Team. Jim Rosenhaus from the Cleveland Indians radio network joins us. And don't forget, Game 1 of the ALDS. You can hear it right here on your home for Yankees baseball, 104.5 The Team.
Jim, we know that they're looking to pitch Kluber in Game 2 to possibly get him 2 games on regular rest. Is there any fear of rain and a rain out for the Friday game? We've heard the weather could be up in the air.
I imagine so. Right now it's looking good, but this being Cleveland, right next to Lake Erie, give it a little time and it could change considerably. So, it doesn't look like it's going to be one of those all-day rain events that they're concerned about. There may be some passing showers. Maybe there's a delay if it happens at a particular time. But at least right now, it doesn't look like one of those situations where they would be pushed back a day. And I think having that 5 o'clock start helps. If it was an 8 o'clock start, maybe there'd be a little less patience to get the game in. But actually, it just doesn't look like one of those, 24-hour, 48-hour rain events.
And last year Trevor Bauer became the butt of some jokes with the whole drone thing, messing up his finger. He's 100% tonight. Is there added pressure on him to go out and get off to a great start this postseason?
No more than any pitcher pitching in Game 1. I'm sure Sonny Gray feels the same way for the Yankees, where if you want to get your team off to a good start, He's coming from a place of great confidence the way he pitched in the second half this year, a career high for wins in a season, and really, really good since the All-Star break. So, yeah, I mean, no more pressure than I think anybody would have pitching Game 1 of the postseason.
Sonny Gray gets the start for the Yankees tonight. Is there one bat in that offensive lineup for the Indians that Gray needs to be extra careful going up against?
Well, I think that's the key, and it's probably similar for the Yankees. It's not just one bat. I mean, you look up and down the lineup, and the Indians have a pretty deep lineup, and it starts at the top with Francisco Lindor, one of the best young players in the game, had a tremendous season, and he's right in that leadoff spot. And down a couple of notches, you have Jose Ramirez, who's had a tremendous year as well. Edwin Encarnacion provides that power in the middle of the lineup, but there's also, a Carlos Santana, Jason Kipnis is swinging it well, and really there's a lot of pretty good 1 through 9 in terms of what would challenge a pitcher, and I think that's important. You rely on 1 or 2 hitters right in the middle, and then you can be pitched around, and I think both teams kind of are similar in that way, in that there's a lot to be worried about throughout the lineup.
The American League Division Series officially gets underway tonight with the Indians and Yankees Game 1. You can hear it right here on 104.5 The Team. And he took some time with us today. We make sure you listen to him. Jim Rosenhaus, Cleveland Indians Radio Network. Jim, appreciate your time and best of luck throughout this series and enjoy the game.
Thanks for having me on, guys.